In the year 1850, East Africa was split by a border no map dared to draw, but every traveler feared to cross. They called it the Red Wall, a living fortress of the Maasai. This wasn't an empire of stone, it was an empire of iron and cattle. From the deserts of northern Kenya to the endless plains of Tanzania, they held the keys to the continent. For nearly a century, from the 1820s to the late 1880s, no caravan moved without their leave. No army stood against their wrath. While others built castles to hide behind, the Maasai saw the horizon as their entitlement. They waged war not for land, but for what was divinely theirs. They didn't just inhabit the wild, they owned it. Bound by blood, explore the legacy of the Maasai. The Maasai did not follow kings. They followed a divine order. At the summit of their world was the Oloibon, part prophet, part healer. He was the bridge between the people and Enkai, the creator who dwelled in the clouds and the volcanoes of the Rift Valley. Below the prophet stood the elders. They were the keepers of the law. In every corner of modern-day Kenya and Tanzania, their word was final. They didn't need prisons. They had honor. Their lifestyle was as raw as the land itself. They survived on a sacred triad: milk, blood, and meat. They rejected the plow and the grain, choosing instead to live as the lords of the herd. They organized their lives in circles of thorn and bone. Every family, every herd, and every ritual had its place in a machine built for survival. But laws and prayers were only half the story. To hold this world together, they needed a blade. By the 1860s, the Ma were no longer just a people. They were a superpower. Their military was a machine of relentless precision. Thousands of Moran, organized by age sets, moved across the plains of East Africa like a single, breathing organism. This was the Iron Tide. From the lush highlands of Kenya to the deep craters of Tanzania, no rival stood a chance. The Oloibon dreamt of victory, and the warriors made it a reality. They didn't fight for land boundaries. They fought for dominance. They raided with such speed that whole villages vanished before the sun reached its peak. They were the undisputed lords of the horizon. In those golden years, their wealth was endless. Their power was absolute. It seemed as though the sun would never set on the empire of the Red Wall. The Maasai military machine was at its absolute zenith. They ruled the mid-19th century. But at the height of their glory, a darkness was brewing, a storm no spear could pierce. In 1883, the sky dried. For years, a merciless drought gripped East Africa. The lush grasslands of the Rift Valley turned to dust, and the Red Wall began to fracture from within. The drought was the hammer that softened the empire. It weakened the warriors and starved the herds, leaving them defenseless for the plague that followed. It began with the breath of a ghost. Rinderpest, a plague brought from afar, swept through the herds. In months, the millions of cattle that defined the Ma simply vanished. But the plague didn't stop with the herds. Smallpox followed, a silent killer that walked into every manada. The warriors who had never lost a battle found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see. From Turkana to the Serengeti, the Red Wall crumbled. The pride of an empire was replaced by the hollow ache of hunger. 90% of the cattle were gone. Half the people never woke up. As the Ma struggled to rise from the ashes of the plague, a new predator arrived. Not with spears, but with treaties and pens. The British saw a weakened giant. In the early 1900s, they used the, quote, hammer and the trick. They offered protection while sketching lines that would sever the heart of the empire. In 1904 and 1911, the last nail was driven. Under the guise of agreements, the Ma were forced off their best grazing lands, the lush pastures of Laikipia and the Rift Valley. But a warrior spirit cannot be fenced. But the Maasai did not fade. They evolved. From the reserves of the past, they emerged as the iconic face of a continent. They kept the code, they kept the language, and they kept their connection to Enkai. Today they are the guardians of the very lands the world travels thousands of miles to see. From the bustling streets of Nairobi to the protected plains of the Maasai Mara, the Red Wall no longer stops travelers. It welcomes them into a story that refused to end. They survived the drought. They outlasted the plague. They broke the fences of the foreigners. The empire of stone fell, but the empire of the spirit stands firm. This is the Ma, unbroken.